January 13th, 2026. Thank you. And start things off with our public comment section here. And if you please come to the podium, state your name, address, and try and keep it to a few minutes here, and we can get going here. So if there's any public comment, now is the time.
Chairman, excuse me, could we get the new members presented and roll call?
Yeah, good call. Good call, fair point. Yeah, we have a couple new members here on the Planning Commission. If you could like to introduce yourself and say hello.
Alicia, our microphone, thank you.
Oh, right, you said that my first instruction and I already failed.
There's no fail.
I'm Dr. Alicia Lund. I work at Southwestern Oregon Community College. I'm the Director of Institutional Effectiveness. I have been there for 4 years, yes, and have lived in Coos Bay the whole time. Love it here.
So my name's Derek Wyndham. I currently work for the city of North Bend in the Public Works Department. I hope you won't hold that against me. I've been working there for 16 years now, and before that I worked in the state of Washington as a professional land surveyor, and so I have experience both on the private side and the public side of land development, and I'm hoping to bring some of that experience to bear on this commission. And I look forward to serving in this role for the city that I live in, play, and shop in.
Thank you. Well, welcome to our new members. Looks like everyone else is present except for Commissioner Berg. We heard from.
He's supposed to.
I saw him ready to go live.
Okay. Okay. Well, he will be 15 minutes late. Is just on time for Mr. Berg, typically. We can go right ahead with public comment if we'd like. Do we have any public comment? Yeah, please.
Hi, is that working? I'm Donna Rayburn. My address is 1185 South First Street in Coos Bay. That's my business location. I live in Coos Bay as well. But I came here today because I was in the middle of having plans drawn up, obtained a loan, and was planning to do a storage unit on an existing property that I own. And it got shut down, which was very disappointing. My business is in a commercial industrial zone and really not suited for retail or a wedding venue. I mean, there was a lot of ideas thrown out there that just are not appropriate for where we're at. It's industrial, there's roofing and automotive. We're over by the dump. So I don't feel that a retail space is good. Office space is plentiful in Coos Bay. So I just wanted to express my disappointment. I had obtained a loan, got an architect, was going to do a very nice storage unit, very clean. We try to run a very nice roofing business and have our property looking clean and making it part of the community, but this would be a way we could utilize our property and make a living and serve the community. So I just wanted to express that I don't feel this is a good choice to shut everybody down. There's a lot of other businesses that have been allowed to come in that don't necessarily serve the community's best interest. And I just, in my opinion, I'd like to see it changed. I'd like to see my storage units go in. I don't see any harm in it. I don't see any negative side. Currently, that piece of land does not bring you guys any money. The property taxes is very low because it's bare. So putting a building on it would raise the property taxes, would bring more money to the community. So just keep it brief, but that's my opinion. Thank you. Yes. We were shut down. It was stopped because of the moratorium. So we were in the middle of doing it. We got our loan, architect, everything, and then it just was like, stop. So, yeah.
But it's already existing.
The land is existing, but the new building we were going to build for the storage units is not existing.
But isn't there annexes there or something like that?
No, that's for personal storage. That's it's full of roofing tarps. Anything else?
So what you're proposing is just a regular storing lot?
Yes. We wanted to do something two-story, very clean and nice, but it would be a basic store and lock, fenced, of course, and all that.
Would the fence be painted black? I mean, that isn't important.
I really don't care what color the fence is painted, but
So I just didn't check on that.
yeah, that wasn't important.
Okay, any other questions for Donna from the commissioners? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your
coming
time.
and Speaking. Any other public comment?
Hello, I'm Dwayne Shrunk. I'm looking at getting into storage unit facilities. I'm wanting to eventually own about 1,000, say 10 by 10 units. I'm already challenged doing that in Oregon because of the transfer tax. As my dad passed, I'm already looking at paying $500,000 in transfer tax. And even to build a fairly sizable storage unit facility, something similar to like Mark Colton, my kids would be looking at $2.8 million in transfer tax, and they'd lose half. I know it's 42%, but they'd lose half of everything else we built after that. So that limits me to what I can build in Oregon, you know, logically anyways. And I love Oregon. I get concerned with the industry as far as bringing in big industry that's going to bring in a lot of shipping in and out. I just don't think we appeal to them because of the travel. You know, Home Depot would have been a great example of that. They would have trucked a lot in and maybe some out, but I don't think we're going to see that every day with these businesses. So are we going to have businesses that bring that kind of money in that our community can absorb and use everything that they have? And I don't know, you know, and we don't really know where the economy is going. I just, from my standpoint, I think it'd be wise to move kind of slow on this and just, you know, keep our options open. Because storage units can bring in a lot of money. The unit that I want to build, it'd probably assess, I mean, it would probably sell for $12.5 million, so it's going to assess for 10. There's going to be a lot of taxes on that, you know, versus other businesses, and so... And I'd like to have them in Coos Bay, you know. The other thing is I just don't know how many more Coos Bay can really handle. There's no question there is a need for it, but let's just get realistic. How many more can we really build? How much space are we really going to take up before we do meet that need? I don't think we're going to take it all up. So I think it leaves room for industry as well. So that's just a thought. I'm kind of new to this topic, so it's my thought. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Tom Ross. I'm 763 South Broadway. I am here today seeking your consideration on continuance of the storage proposal and or a denial. I was here, and some of you had seen me here previously. I don't want to take a quick dive into the previous summary, and during that meeting, we determined that there was inaccuracies in that staff report. We determined that there was numbers that may not have been justified. I want to bring out the EOA as part of that. You know, we had discussed during that meeting that the EOA was just completed and it was weighted heavily on the port project, which in my opinion weighted the numbers that the acreage that's going to be needed to be reserved. You know, we prioritize the types of jobs that would be brought, streetscapes, et cetera. Let's look at the storage industry as a whole. You know, it supports and sustains jobs in Coos Bay. Types of people that would use storage in Coos Bay would be traveling nurses, for example, Coast Guard. So the purpose of self-storage industry in the Coos Bay area is not necessarily to bring new additional jobs, but to sustain existing jobs or future jobs that are going to come into the area. You know, if we look at this port project going ahead, based on the numbers in the EOA, we were in the 9,400 people range to complete that project, if I remember correctly. Well, with the influx of that amount of people in a project that is still not solidified, are we really giving a good economic analysis for the city of Coos Bay, including that in it? I'm not 100% sure. Now I'm going to move to the current staff report, looking at it. You know, the proposal is to restrict all additional storage being built. You know, in one portion of this report, it says there's 13 permitted self-storage facilities currently. The permitted outright is IC. And then it's commercial zoning wants to go with a conditional use permit. My understanding is that conditional use permit will not be for all designations within commercial, it'll just be self-storage. So it's pretty much singling that out. And that's concerning because it's going to limit property owners from their ability to effectively gain an economic advantage due to restrictions. It may limit their ability to sell that property because of the condition listed with it. I don't know if that's absolutely a good idea. In another section of this report, it indicates that there's 14 self-storage facilities existing in the city limits. So we have some data that seems to be not completely thorough. And then we look at exhibit on page 4, examples of storage facilities in comparable areas. So one of the first ones on there is listing there's an average of 7 total facilities to a 10 to 20,000 population range. First example, and I stopped at the first example, was Prineville. Prineville is an example of 11,000 people, and according to the data on the staff report, it says that there are 6 facilities in Prineville. Well, part of my job with U-Haul Company is to know the storage community in all of the coastal areas, and I have colleagues in other areas that work in those, in that capacity too.
Mr. Ross, we're going to have to keep these comments, to a few minutes here.
Yeah,
So if we
okay,
can
and I'm
kinda-
just about wrapped up. We don't have a timer running, so I don't know exactly, I don't know where exactly we're at, okay? We're gonna just stick with the exhibit of the example of a comparable marketplace. 6 was the number listed on the staff report. 21 in 2.8 miles of ground zero of Prineville. So what I'm asking as commissioners that we take a good, strong look, if I was in your shoes, to look at the accuracy of the data. I don't believe enough of a deep enough dive has been taken into the actual storage community here and the needs for the citizens. And I would ask that maybe we would continue this again till we can take a deeper dive into it. If I was sitting in each of your shoes, I would be reliant that the data would be 100% accurate before I can make a decision on where to move ahead. And I don't have confidence in all of the data. Now, you may view it differently, and that's fine, okay? But I would ask that we take a deeper dive and look at it and may possibly continue this for another time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other? Yeah, thank you.
My name is Vern Hers. I live at 525 South Marple Street in Coos Bay, Empire. I own Empire Mini Storage. The foundations of the sudden urgency to stop all mini storage facilities are stated in several points listed in the Planning Commission report for today's meeting. On page 1, the new definition of mini storage is way too broad, as established by Tom Ross at the October meeting. It also says expressly prohibits mini storage facilities, listing then all of the zones. Nothing about past, present, or future. Then it says self-storage facilities do not provide permanent jobs. Can anyone name anything that provides permanent jobs other than perhaps state or government bureaucracies? The city prioritizes increased assessed values, saying self-storage facilities are generally prescribed lower assessed values than other commercial development types. They introduced Exhibit 1 listing 4 mini storage facilities. 1 wasn't even in the city limits, and 4 multi-use facilities. Using that list, the Fortress pays over $33,000 in tax, the Fortress facility. The Chandler building pays a little over $19,000, and the Tioga building pays a little over $18,000. So the argument is not accurate. Page 2, there are 13 permitted self-storage facilities, yet on page 4 the report says, states of the facilities, or there's, the report states of 22 facilities on the map, 18 are in Coos Bay city limits. Well, 13, 18, which one am I supposed to believe? Page 4, it is important to note that the city does not plan for the storage space needs of the entire region, just those of the city of Coos Bay. Well, what they're doing now, by not contacting those of us in the industry to find out what the needs are, no, they don't. It has been established that there are insufficient storage units available in the city of Coos Bay to serve its citizens' needs. The industry was not consulted. The information supplied by the staff is not accurate, and this commission depends on it to be accurate to make an informed recommendation. I strongly recommend denying the permanent prohibition of land use app, and I strongly recommend a continuance so a work group of interested, knowledgeable volunteers can join with those in the city to come up with reasonable alternatives which satisfy both entities' concerns, and then remove the draconian moratorium. The city of Coos Bay says they want to create new, this is the, the city council, says they want to create new job opportunities here in Coos Bay, and mini storage is a threat to that. If the city is so interested in the financial growth of Coos Bay, why didn't they hire one of the local engineering firms here in Coos Bay to draw up the Empire area blueprint, rather than sending more than $150,000 to David Evans and Associates in Portland? Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, move on to the next agenda item here, election of Planning Commission Chair and Vice Chair. It's that time. Yeah.
Do we have nominees or what?
There's no nominees. Does somebody want to?
I'll nominate Josh to be the chair again.
I'll second that.
I think we did this last year.
Have to be vice chair.
Wait a minute.
I'll second that. Sounds we got her done.
Okay. All right. Well, carry on.
We have to vote on that.
Yes. favor? Any opposed? All in favor? Okay, okay, there we go. All right, another year, same as last year. Okay, moving on now to the continuance of the public hearing to consider type 4 land use application number 187-25-000-115-PLNG. Chelsea, do you have anything?
I think you missed a number there. Maybe not.
Just one moment, please. Yeah. That's good. Okay, good evening, Commissioners. We've already heard some comment, but this is the agenda item for self-storage unit facility regulations. Proposal to amend the text of the development code to change how and where self-storage unit facilities are regulated. Some background. Back in August of 2025, Council did impose a moratorium on the development of new storage unit facilities. They did later in November adopt an economic opportunities analysis that identified a deficit of lands that was found to comply with statutes for EOAs. In October, Planning Commission conducted the initial public hearing on this matter. We did receive public comment, lots of phone calls in advance in support or neutral to the proposal. At our last public hearing, we had a few in opposition. Today, there are additional voices in opposition. We know Planning Commission was not in favor of the express prohibition, and so Planning Commission conducted the public hearing. They closed the public hearing, continued deliberations till January, this meeting, so that they could be presented with additional avenues by which storage unit facility development could be regulated. So that's what we're here doing tonight. Just some technical bits. Land use proceedings require certain notice. One to the Department of Land Conservation and Development, that was provided. There's lots of public notice that goes out. We at the city posted at City Hall, on the city website, in the city newsletter. This specific case, which would potentially change allowed uses of property, it requires what we call a ballot measure 56 notice. That is a paper notice with very specific language that is mailed out to all affected owners. That was sent. Additional notice to outside agencies was sent initially, and then also to the agencies and the public after our October public hearing, identifying that we've continued the hearing to this date. Also, World newspaper publication goes out. So that is just letting you know that all the required public notice has been given. This is the list prior to this date of all the public comment received, and so you can see leading up to October, there was lots of in support or neutral. At the public hearing, we had 2 in opposition. After the public hearing, I received more comments kind of neutral to the proposal, but then you've had additional comments tonight. So just to recap, which I think's been done, but the proposal initially is to add a new definition for mini storage to Title 17. It's also to expressly prohibit mini storage facilities across all zone districts. Currently, commercial uses, which mini storage could fall under, those are already expressly prohibited in our low-density residential and watershed zone districts, so that's why those aren't included in the initial proposal. As you're aware, the initial proposal effectively prohibits new mini storage facilities citywide.
And the criteria for this is in your October 14th staff report. So this is a map of existing facilities. There's some terminology being thrown around. We do currently have 13 permitted facilities. We have 14 identified based on best available data. There are additional units within proximity to Coos Bay that were shown, just reflective of the kind of density that is in the city versus out in the county. So you can't really see it on the screen, but what this map just shows is that the units that we've identified, they are primarily in our commercial zone districts. We have some in Empire, some along Ocean Boulevard, some in kind of South Coos Bay and Inglewood and East Side. So alternative pathways, there were a couple presented. You could restrict self-storage unit facilities to the industrial commercial zone district. I mean, you could pick any zone district with some substantiating findings, but the IC zone district is really currently planned for that type of use. You could prohibit the use in our Empire Area Blueprint and Front Street Blueprint planning areas. Commissioners talked about, maybe reserving those areas because of the extent of work that's gone into revitalizing them. You could require a conditional use permit in the commercial zone district. Currently, a conditional use permit is required in the mixed use commercial zone district, but not in the commercial zone district. So doing that is one way you could help kind of regulate the types of storage unit or the impacts of storage units in the commercial zone district. A conditional use permit would be what we call a type 2 or type 3 land use review, depending on the project scale. And so anything up to 20,000 square feet would be a type 2. That would be done in-house by staff with public comment opportunities. And then a type 3 would be anything larger than 20,000 square feet, and those would come before a planning commission. You could set a cap on the number of self-storage unit facilities permitted in city limits. So there are 14, I'm counting 14 because we have one that was in the pre-application conference stage that I wouldn't discount because they'd already started the process officially with us and have since then applied for their application. So they're kind of in mix. So that's why I'm counting a total of 14. If you were gonna set a cap, I wouldn't set it any lower than that. Based on best available data, permitted units, the average benchmark for populations 10 to 20K is 4 to 7. Certainly there are communities with more. Could establish a buffer from one self-storage unit facility to another. What buffers do is aim to protect adjacent lands by reducing a visual, noise, and or traffic impacts. 300 to 500 feet is a reasonable distance, more or less may be desirable. So those are a few of the other ways that this type of development could be regulated. And so, in conclusion, Planning Commission needs to make a recommendation to the City Council. You could certainly recommend a denial of the application with identified supportive findings. You could approve it as is. You could approve it subject to conditions, changes, recommended changes. And in the event of an approval, they would then enact an ordinance. And so we're not gonna go over all the details we went over in October because we had that public hearing, we had that staff report, but this would be the opportunity now for Planning Commission to deliberate and decide what direction you want to go.
I just have trouble understanding. I guess I don't know why this particular little segment of our commercial buildings requires such concern over impact and it's not like it's making a lot of noise or the inhabitants are drunk all the time or anything like that. It's just, I don't get it, why it's become such a pariah in our community to have, 14 or 15 or 25 of them. I mean, they're taking up space. Well, so do all these too many real estate offices in town to suit me, and, they're taking up space. So I guess I'm just having trouble understanding the fuss.
On that, kind of that same vein there, I think what I have an issue with is if we have people in town wanting to invest in the town here, but we're gonna set aside this land for maybe future potential people coming in, outside industry coming in here, it doesn't make any sense to me if we have people that own their land and wanna do something with it. We should be supportive of that and encouraging that, not holding it out for some potential boon down the road.
I mean, presumably, we're not tearing down orphanages to build these things. I mean, it's, I guess, I'm just not sure how the council came up with this in the first place, to have this be a big deal. And I have trouble understanding why the lady comes up and talks about the roofing company, and they've got extra land there, and they could put an improvement on that where people can put their extra stuff that obviously they probably don't need, but still rent these places. And I guess I'm having trouble with understanding the benefit of the moratorium to tell her no.
It's kind of seems like a solution in search of a problem here, really.
I mean, are there other kinds of businesses that we have too many of that we would like to limit?
We went through this with the marijuana folks a few years ago, and I think we kind of determined with those, well, let's just kind of let them figure it out.
And it turns out we don't seem to have a terrible issue with that. I guess well, anyway, I don't mean to rant on about it because we need to get through this stuff, but I just think whenever something is singled out and gets all this attention, one would wonder what it is about it that is, whose ox is getting gored, if you will.
I think it's a good point, Jim. And the storage units are low impact. You don't have a lot of electrical and water and all that sort of thing. It's not a big building, and let the market decide if somebody puts in a storage unit and that property is higher and best use. Somebody wants to put a Lowe's there or whatever. Yeah, then it needs to go away. But in the meantime, why not? It's an easy thing to put in. It's an easy thing to make go away.
Lowe's can buy it. Lowe's can buy it and build on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's anyway. Well, I'm going to have trouble understanding the terrible problem.
I don't get it.
I think we had a discussion at the prior meeting in, was it October? About restricting the units from the waterfront district and also Empire, which I'm totally okay with. We've got I see approved self-storage, perfect zoning for the Rayburn site and lots of others. I don't agree with a conditional use permit in the commercial zone. Allow it outright. This cap on self-storage units, forget it. The distance requirement, forget it. Let the market decide. The references on the exhibit, one with regard to the storage facilities and the taxes and the comparisons with the multi-use facilities between the Coney Station, the Chandler, Cafe 101, and Tioga, they're terrible comparisons, especially the 8 and 9-story building and a 6-story apartment structure. If you take those two out, the comparisons of the taxes are comparable to what the storage facilities are doing. Regardless, they're very viable. There's demand in the community for it. From multiple parties here tonight, and I can attest that throughout the county, occupancy is 95% plus. So I'm totally opposed to C and D on page 5. Disagree with the conditional use permit and just allow it outright in IC and commercial. Enough said.
I would like to just add one thing, and maybe I'm don't know the full story, but if they are structures that are built, I think that's very important. There's a very large storage unit in Coquille that are just Connex boxes. They rain inside, they ruin people's stuff. That's a real cheap fix for storage. I don't think it's something I want to see in Coos Bay. But if it's a well-built, well-maintained unit, I can see nothing wrong with that.
Well, don't they have to go through the same building codes and things that other buildings go through? I mean,
Maybe
you
so.
know, you can't just set up a row of tents and put your stuff in them, and, you know, I mean, but one thing is, I think that kind of sort of missed here is that as we have concerns with housing, we know it's a shortage of housing, and we know that there is there's price of property, the price of houses is very, very high. I mean, you know, compared to what us old guys can remember. But you know, if you live in a little apartment and you inherit grandma's piano and something else, where are you going to put it? I mean, it almost ties together with, you know, smaller and low-income housing. I mean, I realize from the TV shows, a lot of that junk that people put in there is kind of worthless, and but you know, it's still valuable to them. And you know, being in the land of the free, I mean, it's not like where we can only have the $1 for Christmas. I mean, we want to have a couple. And anyway, I just, those are the kinds of thinking that I think, I'm not sure that's been addressed or thought of or considered in the wisdom of the council to start this issue.
Well, I'd like to, Jim, you're absolutely right. The building code does not allow you to put up some tents and call it a mini storage facility.
Good.
So you were asking about, Jim, you were asking about what's the prerogative with this moratorium? I was kind of reading through this resolution 25-29. We're putting this moratorium, the council's putting the moratorium on building any new mini storage facilities. And so I was kind of reading down through here, and it's at item 2. Continued land use patterns would be inconsistent with economic development and corridor activation objectives. And then I go down to item 6. Certain project approvals may impair economic growth and corridor plans. And then I go to item 6 again. Primary goal of avoiding long-term corridor degradation. So I think what they're looking at is Ocean Boulevard, Newmark, and Empire Boulevard. That corridor is kind of the front door to Coos Bay in a way. And that's the corridor that the folks are going from off Highway 101 to the state parks. And I think that we want to kind of roll out the red carpet as far as maybe the buildings and the use along that corridor is kind of what I'm interpreting from this moratorium. And so I was looking at Exhibit 2 in the staff report, which I had a question on, that's showing a mini storage facility that just west of the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board office. I'm trying to figure out what that is. That would be like Alder Acres. I don't think there's actually, well, if I go to Figure 2 of the staff report, it doesn't show that there's a mini storage facility there, so I was just wondering about that. But
Well, I think they're gonna have beds.
I don't think that
Trailer park
Alder
in there.
Acres has some outdoor storage with some covered things, but not self-storage.
For people that live there.
Yeah, it's,
okay.
correct.
Well,
So I'm looking at this map, Exhibit 2, and I'm thinking about the characteristics of the corridor, okay? And when I talk about the corridor, I'm talking about Ocean Boulevard, Newmark, and Empire Boulevard. There's, when you're going back past Walmart, there's 16,000 trips a day, AADT going past Walmart. And then there's 8,000 trips a day at the other end at the South Empire Boulevard at Fulton, which is our treatment plan number 2. So there's a lot of traffic that we know that's the main street of town, basically. And so I think the council is thinking about the highest and best use along this front-facing corridor. And when I'm thinking about the highest and best use, I'm thinking about businesses that roll out the welcome mat, like restaurants and retail with business hours and signage. Come on in, see what we have, as opposed to maybe a warehouse or a mini storage facility, which we certainly have a need for that use, but maybe not on the corridor. And when I go by one of these mini storage facilities, I see a sign that says property under 24-hour video surveillance, and there's no windows, there's high fences, there's walls, but that's all to enhance the security so that I would choose that mini storage facility to go because I have good security there. But it's not like a welcome mat like you would get with other businesses that I'm thinking that we maybe would have a higher and best use on that corridor. The city and ODOT, in 2016, we spent, $4 million on improvement of South Empire Boulevard from Fulton to Newmark. And that's not including the $1.25 million that the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board spent on improving the water main line in that area. And so there's been a lot of investment, and I think there's a lot of expectation about this corridor. And so that brings me down to one of the questions was what definition should we use for mini storage? And of course, I would think there's already a definition in the Oregon Structural Specialty Code, and that definition is real property designed and used for the purpose of renting or leasing individual storage spaces to customers for the purpose of storing and removing personal property on a self-service basis. I would offer up that definition. And then I was really keying in on what you were saying, Mr. Marino, at the last meeting on this topic about the IC. And I see the IC as an appropriate location for future development of mini storage. Because the IC zones are kind of off the corridor in a way. Maybe I would add like an asterisk, except all parcels within 200 feet of the US Route 101 as an identifier in that IC zone for those primary locations. Also, I was looking at, on top of that, I was looking at the vacant lots available. So I was looking at the vacant parcel map that's online, and we probably need to update that a little bit because it wasn't showing that motel that was razzed north of Motel 6.
Just a comment with regard to 101, the land prices along that strip are the highest that we have along the coast. The last place a self-storage project is going to go is on one of those $25 a square foot sites. Not gonna happen.
Right on 101.
Yeah, not gonna happen. Will not happen. You all can, they paid $8.50, $9 a foot. It's closed, but it's over on a piece of property that had a lot of issues with it. But to limit it to the IC zone is a great spot for it. But the market's gonna determine what's appropriate on those sites. It's not gonna be self-storage.
I guess the example I see of the site that was Gussie's, familiar site to me in my younger years, is, pretty much flattened out entirely. I don't know of anybody looking at that, would seem to be an obvious site if you're going to have some attractive tourist-friendly business. And it's been sitting there for quite a while. People have tried to run things there and it hasn't worked. And I mean, I know that you can't just judge the future by the past, but I just offer that as sort of another example of how things have kind of developed in Coos Bay. And there's some reasons, it seems like sort of reasons why some places just don't seem to have trendy, cute development, and others seem to be more likely to generate that. And that, that area along in there hasn't really developed much in the way of that. And, so maybe it could be just, if you've been here all your life and you watch things happen, and you're kind of biased probably, maybe wrong in some reasons, but anyway.
I'm just looking at the amount of existing mini storage facilities on that corridor from, from the Monarch to Empire Mini Storage. I mean, that's, half a dozen facilities in a mile. And I think the council is probably concerned about that continuing, that kind of development, continuing in that area where they're trying to change, instead of a warehouse district, they're probably expecting more of a welcome mat, like I was saying.
So those particular areas, we specifically said were off limits to self-storage going forward, as well as the waterfront district. That was our discussion, correct, Pat?
You mean the Empire District?
Yes, excuse me.
That was the discussion.
And the waterfront district in Coos Bay here,
The
Right.
waterfront, yeah.
I mean, that would be, and Empire, there's been effort trying to make, and, certainly things have happened there that is a much different place than it was 40 years ago. And hopefully that will continue to progress.
Well, do you think if we were to just to limit it to the IC zone, would that?
So the commercial zone, there's commercial zones off major arterials where self-storage might be perfect. So I just come back to the market should determine that. Personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think, I think a good, well-run, well-maintained storage facility is much better than a blighted lot. I mean, look at that right there on the bay there at the slough. I mean, U-Haul facility they just built. I mean, that's a nice looking building. They really gave that whole end of town a little bit of a lift there. I mean,
Fix the street.
yeah, I mean, I have a hard time really limiting folks in town that do want to do something and have an idea. I think we should be as supportive of that as we can be, and, we're already kind of protecting the Empire District and the waterfront through those plans, and it's tough to.
Josh.
I just have a quick question. Could you review again your concerns about the conditional use permit on the commercial zone? Because it strikes me that was the intent behind that. We could still preserve that as intended and still have that opportunity to review in those areas where it's perfectly acceptable to have a self-storage. So it would help me if you would just give a recap on the concerns with having that conditional use versus outright.
She wants clarification on the commercial zone, the conditional use.
Well, so I'm just one voice here. If the rest of the commission wants conditional use in that zone, fine. I don't believe it's necessary to do that. I think if they make an application, it meets all the codes with regard to security, with regard to fencing, done correctly. What's the problem? So specifically mentioned in this report was the conditional use process is a problem for some developers. Specifically mentioned here. It draws out the process, there's uncertainty in it. So it's probably a 4 or 5 months additional process through the city. Sometimes having to come to the planning commission, most of the time through the staff. So that's my issue with conditional use in the commercial zone.
I guess, it's almost like if you're gonna have conditional use for this, why not have a conditional use for everything? I mean, really slow this thing up, and, but I mean, because there certainly are other businesses that are unattractive, for a lot of reasons that you wouldn't want there. And, I think that it's, when we start trying to judge what is, what is good and what is bad and to make, that's what they essentially ask us to do here. Make a judgment as to whether this store and lot facility is appropriate here, or is a auto tearing apart place a better source there? Is it what is is it a retail store that we want? Is that the desired thing? I mean, it's like there's like I say, I know that it's not particularly pretty or anything to drive by, but on the other hand, it's not offensive, to drive by the fortress out there on.
Well, I don't think that anyone's gonna come to town and drive through and visit and spend some money here and go out to the beach and go to the restaurants and stuff, and then on their way home go, you know, that was a nice place, but they had 19 storage facilities, when they really per capita should have had 14. You know, if someone's if we get to the point where that's how we're being judged, I welcome that.
Or if they didn't have any, I'd move there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, anyway.
So, Planning Commission, can I just intervene? What I am hearing is that Planning Commission really doesn't want to see any changes to the existing code other than perhaps to restrict development of storage units within the Empire area in the Waterfront Heritage District, which I don't have a pointer, but up on this map, the Empire study area, that's this kind of Newmark Empire corridor, would cover that. And then the Waterfront Heritage District is over here in this highlighted kind of aquamarine color, covers part of 101, so that's what you would be restricting, where you would be restricting units. It does cover some of the corridors, not in the entirety, but that's what that would do. And then potentially consider a new definition that would be in line with Oregon structural specialty codes, which is what we, base our building permits on. That's what I'm hearing so far that maybe we have consensus around. So I wonder if we can.
Correct.
Well, I think that's correct. The only thing that I would have to add to that is the storage units that we currently have, with the exception maybe of U-Haul, are really light on the landscape. That's, you look at the Fortress, it would have been no big deal to put a few trees and some shrubs in the front of that, so it doesn't look like a storage unit. What happens inside doesn't really matter, but they just typically look like they're really, like the landscape that was supposed to go in, they should have went in there. I don't care, we're at 5% or 7%. They should have done something, a couple of trees, some shrubbery, something to make it look more presentable and not just a asphalt with boxes on it.
So that's part of the development ordinances.
Correct. Current code would say that all new development, non-residential, would require minimum of 15% landscaping, and the required landscaping needs to be on the perimeter. So in theory, your development should get that perimeter landscaping along the street frontages.
That was in place though when the Fortress was built, and it did not happen. So I guess my point is, let's make sure that they're attractive.
Yeah.
A little landscaping goes a long ways.
Agree.
Chelsea, I have a question. I'm looking at Exhibit 2 here, and in the south part of Coos Bay, on Broadway, there's a storage unit in the commercial zone. I don't know if you can use your pointer to point at it there.
Yeah.
Go south of your, yeah. What's that?
My understanding, I could be incorrect, but I think that is an in process to being developed storage unit around South 2nd, South 4th, South 2nd Street, proposing some storage. I could be wrong.
Okay. All right.
Behind is kind of behind Wendy's. There's a storage facility.
Oh, the old Courtesy Pontiac
The Courtesy Pontiac, where Jason Malt put in his building there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That could be what this is.
okay.
Apologies for not knowing exactly.
Yeah, no, that's cool, but I mean, that's a nice looking building, and we put a lot of work into it. And I didn't know that was gonna be a storage unit. I thought it was gonna be kind of more like the place next to, where's the Coach House there, where there's multi-use
Oh, yeah.
little shops there. Okay. I mean, I really see no problem with the way things currently are. And I agree with what's been said here, especially with Ms. Rayburn there, and I kind of have an idea where her property is. I mean, that's a perfect place for a storage unit. But I also, I think what Mr. Wyndham has proposed about maybe something off the corridor, but at the same time, I guess I just don't think there's a problem at this point to have this kind of a moratorium, which is pretty draconian. And I mean, it's not like there's, I don't think, are there businesses that are saying, my God, we can't find any space because of all these storage units. And, I mean, honestly, that building where, on Anderson, kind of in Coos Bay, where there's nothing in it now, where Devil's Darrell or whatever, the devil food, I mean, it's a great place for homeless people to sleep. But, you know, if somebody use some kind of storage or something in there, that would make it a lot nicer than what it currently is.
I think it's on the schedule to be demolished, is what I've been told. You know, because if you walk through it, when we first started, we had the corner, we rented 35 years ago there, and it was, had to go upstairs and run some wires and for phones, and, I mean, it was just like this, you know, it's definitely enjoying the effects of the waterfront, the old slough that it's built on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too. I mean, so many of those places in the downtown area, I mean, you're not gonna wanna put a storage unit when,
No,
I mean,
no.
I did business in a building there, but you know, it's Ticor title, and when it was high tide, you know, my basement had water in it this tall. And so I had to wear waders to go make sure the sump pump would work. Yeah, I just don't see where this is really a problem at this point in time to really restrict people that would want to perhaps develop the thing. And I just think there's a lot of need for these storage units. I mean, you know, people split up, get divorced, mom dies, you live in a manufactured home park, and you don't have space to store all your stuff because of the restrictions in those. And, you know, if we get these other houses over there at, what's it called, Timber Cove.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's gonna be people there, then there's not gonna be a ton of space from what I understand on those lots, so.
400,
Yeah, that's just a lot of people, a lot of stuff. And I mentioned this before, I'm part of a business that owns storage units, and just knowing how they're used, you know, a lot of people get those, they keep on paying them, they don't look at what's in there, and stuff's gotta go somewhere. And, people have a lot of stuff, more stuff than they need. So, anyhow.
Can I ask again, aside from the moratorium, just looking at the current code, can I build a mini storage facility in the commercial zone right now? There's no conditional use or anything.
In the commercial zone, it's permitted. In the mixed-use commercial zone, it is a conditional use.
A conditional use. So a conditional use means that it's gonna come before us? No.
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 It's dependent on project scale. 20,000 square feet or more would come to Planning Commission.
But, Mr. Marino, you're saying that just the market alone is gonna restrict that kind of development in the commercial zone?
I would say certain areas of the commercial zone, I'm not saying in all areas, but as you get closer to your important arterials, the price of the real estate goes up. And people are sensitive to that, including self-storage people.
Right.
So,
I mean, to have the appropriate number of units to even make any money,
yeah,
you're not gonna put it on a smaller lot. I mean, it just doesn't work.
Right.
You need probably at least an acre, or at least half an acre.
So Chelsea, what is it that we're doing here this evening? Is this a recommendation?
Correct. Planning Commission would make a recommendation to the City Council. And so it could be, as you've been discussing, that rather than to have a moratorium, your recommendation would be to protect the Empire District, the Waterfront Heritage District, to consider a definition in line with Oregon Structural Specialty Code, make no other changes.
Was Medical Park included in that?
Medical Park is currently a little iffy. Commercial uses are allowed, storage unit could be considered a commercial use. It's iffy. So you could consider the Medical Park District as well.
What, where did we pull definition of storage units from when we,
I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly. From a staff perspective, sorry, Commissioner Marino, aligning with the building code is not a bad idea, because
Yeah.
it keeps us on the planning and
Yeah.
building on the same page.
okay. Sounds like we have the, kind of the basic structure of a motion here, if somebody wants to assemble that. And
Which were the zones were?
the Empire and the waterfront heritage.
Excluded.
Exclude, yeah. Exclude from,
Yeah.
further from those zones.
So basically continue a moratorium on those zones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
And then adopt the language, the definition language.
So maybe, Chelsea, could you repeat your comments
Certainly, yes.
with regard to,
Yeah, so Planning Commission could motion, they recommend City Council approve the land use application subject to the following changes. Keep the current Title 17 zoning regulations as is, except to prohibit new development of storage unit facilities in the Empire area district and except within the Waterfront Heritage District, and adopt a new definition for self-storage unit facilities in line with the Oregon Structural Specialty Code.
that's my motion.
Perfect, good. Do we have a second on Jeff's so eloquently put motion there?
I will second that motion.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Just one second.
Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
just 1 second
Sure.
before we do vote, I do need to mention, I did have some contact with somebody in the audience tonight that called my office and discussed this a little bit, and that was Mr. Hers. Didn't really change my opinion on anything, so I don't see where I'm biased at all. He's very polite and nice, by the way. But, yeah, he just expressed his, what we said tonight, so there's
Sure.
nothing new there.
Fair enough.
Okay. Doesn't seem like there's.
No
you
conflict
recused
of
yourself
interest.
from that, but thank you for hearing that light. Let's see, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Okay, can I just get a show of hands for who was in favor? Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Planning Commission comments.
None here. Other than,
None?
Welcome.
yeah, welcome. yeah,
Welcome.
Welcome, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
One comment.
okay, I was waiting for you.
Yeah,
I knew
thanks.
you had something.
The intersection of Elrod and 10th, that three-way intersection where there's 2 stop signs and not one on the other side, it would be nice if there was some kind of traffic device that let people know that the traffic coming east on Elrod doesn't stop. People mess that up all the time. There's always broken glass there. My kid got hit by somebody, uninsured driver.
Ooh.
And anyway, I just throw that out there to the Public Works Department or whoever needs to decide that type of stuff. That's my only comment. Thank you. Oh, and if somebody can go up to the water board property or, the property at the end of Elrod there, there's a new big pile of trash that's getting bigger and bigger. Since I drive by it every day, I noticed that. Thank you.
Suggest this is a place we can bring trash.
Depends on what it is.
Well, I made a haul there the other day coming off the pipeline, and I hauled 9 shopping carts. That's as many as I could get on my tractor. 9 shopping carts out of that area.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you everyone for coming here this evening. We'll adjourn January 13th, planning commission meeting.